Why don't passenger airplanes simply fly straight over Antarctica? It looks like a direct path across the bottom of the world, so why do airlines almost always avoid it? The answer has much less to do with the ice itself, and much more to do with emergency landings, extreme weather, remote infrastructure, and the enormous challenges of operating thousands of miles away from civilization. Look at a typical world map, and Antarctica appears almost like an empty space at the bottom of the planet. Covering roughly 14 million square kilometers, it is larger than Europe, yet regular commercial flight routes across the continent are extremely rare. But here's the surprising part. Airplanes absolutely can fly over Antarctica. Research aircraft, military aircraft, cargo planes, and specialized sightseeing flights have all operated over the continent. So the real question isn't whether airplanes can fly there, it's why ordinary commercial airlines have very little reason to do it. One of the biggest reasons is emergency planning. Modern passenger aircraft are incredibly reliable, but commercial aviation is designed around preparing for the possibility that something could go wrong. An engine problem, fire, medical emergency, pressurization issue, or other serious malfunction can force an aircraft to divert to another airport. Over most populated areas of the world, airports are spread across countries and continents. Even over oceans, airlines carefully plan routes around suitable diversion airports. Antarctica is completely different. There are very few facilities capable of handling a large passenger aircraft, and many Antarctic airstrips are seasonal, specialized, or primarily intended for research and logistical operations. Imagine a Boeing 777 carrying hundreds of passengers experiencing a serious emergency while flying deep over Antarctica. Instead of being able to divert to a major international airport, the crew could potentially be hundreds or even thousands of miles from a suitable runway. Even if an Antarctic runway existed somewhere nearby, it might not have the equipment, rescue services, medical facilities, or infrastructure required to handle hundreds of passengers. That's a major problem for commercial airlines, because having somewhere to land is only one part of emergency planning. Airlines also need to know what happens after the aircraft touches the ground. Then there's the environment itself. Antarctica is the coldest continent on Earth, and temperatures in the interior can fall far below -50 degrees Celsius. But extreme cold isn't the only challenge. Strong winds, blowing snow, sudden storms, and extremely poor visibility can create dangerous conditions for aviation. A runway that might be usable under one set of conditions could become much more difficult to operate from when weather changes. For a commercial airline carrying hundreds of passengers, that level of uncertainty makes route planning considerably more complicated. Antarctica does have runways, but they are very different from the international airports most passengers are familiar with. Some Antarctic landing surfaces are made from compacted snow or ice, while others operate only during certain seasons. A major passenger aircraft weighing hundreds of thousands of kilograms requires much more than a flat surface. Airlines need suitable runway conditions, navigation equipment, weather information, emergency services, firefighting capability, trained personnel, and a reliable plan for what happens if the aircraft cannot continue its journey. That's why simply having a runway on a map doesn't automatically make it a suitable emergency airport. Another important factor is economics. The shortest route between two cities isn't necessarily the route an airline wants to fly. Airlines have to consider weather, winds, fuel requirements, airspace restrictions, aircraft capabilities, alternate airports, passenger demand, and operating costs. A slightly longer route can sometimes be much safer and more practical. And perhaps most importantly, there simply aren't many major cities on the other side of Antarctica. If an airline is flying between Europe and South America, for example, there is little commercial reason to send an aircraft deep into Antarctica when established routes already connect major population centers through regions with airports and extensive infrastructure. The same principle applies to routes involving Australia, Africa, and South America. There may be theoretical paths across Antarctica, but a route only becomes useful when it connects places people actually need to travel between. Airlines aren't trying to find the shortest line on a map. They're trying to create routes that are safe, practical, profitable, and supported by the infrastructure required to operate them. You may have also heard that international aviation rules completely prohibit passenger aircraft from flying over Antarctica. That's not quite accurate. There isn't simply one worldwide rule that says passenger airplanes are forbidden from flying over the entire continent. Instead, airlines must meet strict operational and safety requirements, including requirements related to suitable diversion airports, weather, fuel planning, aircraft capabilities, communications, and emergency procedures. Antarctica makes satisfying these requirements much more difficult, which is why regular airline routes generally stay away from the continent. Interestingly, specialized sightseeing flights have demonstrated that commercial aircraft can operate over Antarctica. Passengers have been able to see the frozen continent from the air without the aircraft necessarily landing there. These operations are carefully planned and conducted under specific conditions. They prove that the problem isn't the aircraft itself. The real challenge is everything surrounding the aircraft: emergency support, airports, weather, rescue capabilities, logistics, and economics. There's also a human factor that airlines have to consider. If a large passenger aircraft made an emergency landing in a remote Antarctic location, hundreds of people could suddenly find themselves in one of the harshest environments on Earth. Even if the aircraft landed safely, getting those passengers somewhere secure could be incredibly difficult. There might be no nearby city, no hotels, no highways, and no large emergency response network. Rescue operations could take considerable time. Commercial aviation isn't designed merely around surviving an emergency. It's designed around getting passengers safely back into a functioning transportation system, and Antarctica has very little of that system. So, will we eventually see regular passenger airlines flying directly across Antarctica? It's possible that improvements in aircraft technology, navigation, infrastructure, and Antarctic operations could make certain routes more practical in the future. But unless there is a strong commercial reason to connect cities through Antarctica, airlines have very little incentive to accept the additional operational challenges. Aircraft can already fly farther than ever before, but greater range doesn't automatically eliminate the need for suitable emergency airports and support infrastructure. So the next time you look at a global flight map and notice that aircraft seem to avoid the bottom of the world, remember this: it's not because airplanes are incapable of flying over Antarctica. It's not because their engines suddenly stop working over the ice, and it's not because there is a simple worldwide ban on flying there. The real reason is logistics. Commercial aviation depends on safe diversion options, reliable infrastructure, emergency planning, weather conditions, rescue capabilities, and economic demand. Antarctica offers very few of those advantages. The continent may be frozen, but the real reason airlines avoid it is much more complicated: logistics, safety, and practicality. And that's exactly what makes Antarctica one of the most fascinating places in aviation. If you enjoyed this journey into the hidden side of aviation, make sure to subscribe to Deep Blue Avionics. We uncover the mysteries, technology, secrets, and incredible facts behind the world of aviation. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and join us for the next flight. Until then, keep looking up.